That's so funny. He's such a dad. Today,
Wait,
hello.
what's the answer?
What's the answer? I'm gonna
Yeah.
put you in limbo, and I'll give it to you after the show. Hello there.
Wow, cliffhanger.
This is Mark Elias from Albany Realty. Today's guest is Ben Kozberg. Ben is the director of development and Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation, where he's responsible for community outreach, program development, and fundraising. Nationwide Children's is one of the largest and most comprehensive pediatric hospitals and research institutes in the nation. Ben is truly unique in his ability to provide value to donors in response to their donations and not the other way around. Today, I am pleased to welcome Ben Kozberg to the show. What's good, man?
How's it going, Mark? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's just say, God willing, knock on wood, a couple years from now, I am a high-powered real estate guy with maybe my own brokerage, or I just am killing it, and I have cash to donate, and I want to donate. What is that conversation? How does it start? How does that go? Like, give me some flavor around how do we get started?
Sure. Well, first, I'd wish you congratulations on all your success. And I would say, have you had any connection with Nationwide Children's Hospital? Have your kids or other family members or family friends had any connection with the hospital? Usually the answer is either no, or we've had a minor thing here or there where we've had to bring our kid in for urgent care or a broken bone or something like that. So, knock on wood, I say, well, I'd love to tell you more about the hospital. Luckily, you haven't been truly on the consumer side, but I'd love to tell you more about how the hospital is a gem in the city, and see if there's opportunities for you to get involved, whether it's from a philanthropic standpoint, whether it's financially or otherwise.
Got it. And so, just personally, I have experienced Nationwide. My son has asthma. Before we knew how to treat it or manage it, he had an attack and had to go to the hospital. And it was incredible how people swarmed and gave him quick care. The facility was clean and greeting. It was just so class act with the children's area with the jungle scene on the wall.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
incredible experience. And, we acknowledge the fact that our stay was temporary for 2 days, and kids, some of them are not there for 2 days. They're there much longer. So personally, I've had that experience. So role play it with me. So you asked me the question and I just
Yeah.
shared. Yeah, that's been my personal experience.
So I would respond by saying, first of all, I'm glad your son's doing well, doing better. I'm glad you had a positive experience. I'm sorry you had to go through that experience, but I'm glad you had a positive one. I'm going to give props to our architecture team and our interior design team, because you were taken back by the jungle scene. It's actually, we call it our magic forest. And that is there to kind of take your mind off of the real reason why you're at the hospital. It's to create an environment of comfort for you as the parent and for the child, the patient. So I would then say, well, would you like to learn more about what we're doing in regards to asthma and research around asthma and asthma treatment? Or are there other areas that you'd be interested in learning more about? And that's when I would start to really highlight the areas that the hospital is really become known for, whether it's our robust research institute, as you mentioned in the intro. We are now at the forefront of behavioral health and mental health services. We just opened a behavioral health pavilion. So it's a standalone hospital just down the street from our main campus, that's completely dedicated to mental health within, among pediatrics. And it was a first of its kind. And other children's hospitals around the country now know Nationwide Children's as the children's hospital that's truly focusing on mental health and behavioral health for children. Or is there another area, cancer and cancer research, or heart disease, or we're doing so much more that you wouldn't think is directly tied to medicine. So, for example, population health, where we're focusing on the neighborhoods around Nationwide Children's and helping those neighborhoods grow and taking care of those neighborhoods, because we know if those neighborhoods are taken care of and are being supported by an institution like Nationwide Children's, that's going to lead to better healthcare for those children.
Got it. Yeah, that's almost preventative care, being proactive
Right.
versus reactive. So, in my instance, asthma is a part of our world with my son. We do have a management plan, but again, I have some extra cash. So, um, do I just donate and then those funds will be used for that specific department?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways it can work. Again, I don't believe this would happen over one conversation. Sometimes it does, but I would hope that it would happen with you and your family over a series of conversations. But within those conversations, I would be able. You were telling me, okay, the area of asthma is where we want to. That's where we want to invest. We want to support, whether it's research or whether it's on the programmatic clinical side. And I would present some different ideas, different programs that are currently happening that could use an influx of philanthropic support, or there might be some projects down the road that could be fast tracked to start and be implemented if they were to get an influx of philanthropic support.
Yeah.
And kind of present to you a menu of options, whether it's kind of on the education side where it's a fellowship or a lectureship, or it's on the again, going back to the population health side where it's, like you said, preventative. We have a school-based asthma program where we have parts of our asthma team going out to the schools and providing support amongst Columbus Public Schools, and in terms of asthma education, providing inhalers, knowing that most kids spend most of their time at school rather than at home, if you really think about it. And so if we can get into the schools and provide that care and that education in the schools, a lot of these kids we're going to be able to prevent a lot of these kids from having severe asthma attacks.
Got it. Yeah, one thing I'm learning is there's a lot of outreach. It's not just come into our hospital and we'll care for you. There's a lot of proactive programs that help the community beyond the walls of the hospital,
Right.
Which is great. So, I'm in real estate. I have to call people and sometimes have uncomfortable conversations. For example, I might be selling a home in a neighborhood. Some of our best salespeople, so to speak, are neighbors that want other people they know to come move to their neighborhood. So I might have to call around that neighborhood, a couple hundred homes, and ask, my name is Mark Elias. Who do you know that might be looking to buy or, sell their home in the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. I have to be courageous. I have to be honest, and I also have to be okay with rejection. It sounds to me like your job is not dissimilar.
No, it's not. And I've certainly, in the 10 years that I've been in the fundraising world, I've certainly experienced that rejection. Um, it's never been shocking. I think it's probably similar in real estate. You're developing a relationship with individuals, and I've been lucky enough that for most of the folks I've worked with, I at least get far enough down the road where there's a mutual trust and respect. And if ultimately that rejection happens, I can kind of foresee it. And so I'm expecting it, and I understand it, and I'm able to figure out a way to always leave that door open. Usually the rejection is in the form of, not right now. We're really focused on giving to X organization. We love Nationwide Children's. We love what you guys are doing. There might be an opportunity down the road, which I'm sure you've experienced, right? Not really ready to sell my house right now, but in 5 years when my kids leave for college, I might be in a different spot. So maybe I'll look you up.
Yeah.
So when if I'm able to leave that door open a little bit, then I will check back in with that individual or that family or the company, and check in and see how they're doing and see if they'd be open to restarting the conversation. A year, 18 months, 2 years down the road.
Yeah. One thing I have learned is no. We add a lot of meaning to no, and no is just a response to a given request at that time. It's not something
Right.
that is static and remains to be the same, like no, throughout time. It's just that particular request, that instance, that moment. And one of the things I'm learning as I get better and have more experience is that it's okay to ask again. And there's a way to do
Right.
that tactfully, gracefully, without being pushy. And that can be applied to all things in life. I mean,
Right.
it's not just the job of soliciting someone, whether it be to get a donation or for a home sale transaction. Were you always kind of thick-skinned, or did you have to develop your personal
Uh,
skill set?
I would say it's certainly it's been a development. But it's funny you say the no piece and the fact that it's usually that no is specific to that question. I would say that's true in my personal life. I'm hoping my wife doesn't mind me sharing the story, but when I asked we met in college, and when I first asked her to go out, it was not a firm yes. We hung out, and then when the real question came of would like to take this to the next level, it was not right now. But there was the door was open for later on, and luckily later in college we got together. So I think that's probably a good example of some initial rejection, but not total rejection, and being able to take that and you know uh, uh, persevere down the road, if you will.
Yeah, you're
Um,
very tenacious.
yeah, that is yes. I think in the whether it's the real estate world, sales world, fundraising world, when you're soliciting something, I think that's key. It's good to be tenacious. It's good to be aggressive, but I think you have to find that balance of being too aggressive and too tenacious. I think I've made those mistakes where I've reached out to somebody either too soon or too much, and I've learned that I need to either space things out or come out and acknowledge, hey, I know I'm bugging you. Let me know if I'm bugging you too much. And I'll be honest, I even do that after I've developed a nice relationship with a person and they've made a donation to the hospital. I'll tell them, listen, I want to make sure that that I'm stewarding you and you understand and you have a full comprehension of what your donation is doing and the impact it's making. So if I'm bugging you too much about information, you let me know. And there have been times where they've said, yeah, just you don't need to reach out to us every month or 2 months and let us know what's going on. If you want to just send us a kind of an annual report, that's fine. So I kind of take those cues from the individuals I'm working with.
Yeah. How much do you think of the donors who you work with are making a donation? I mean, let's face it, there's tax benefits to donating to a 501c3. How do you think it's more than half or less than half do it for tax benefits?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there's the research shows that more than most people are giving because they truly feel connected to that organization. The tax benefit is, I would say, probably number 6 or 7 or 8 on the top 10 reasons.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's further down than what you would probably think.
Yeah.
Most people give because they want to. They want to see the impact of their financial support. And then there is especially those that are giving at higher levels. There's the relationship of the person doing the soliciting. That's a pretty big reason why people give, and probably why people give at higher levels usually, especially if they're going higher than what they initially thought. That individual most likely did a great job doing the soliciting, doing the cultivating, understanding what that donor's passions were, interests were, and getting the right information in front of them to get them excited about, giving, X amount of dollars to X organization.
Sure. So if someone wants to make a donation, where is there a distinction between wanting to work with you directly versus maybe going to the website? Is there a particular kind of dollar amount that would distinguish which direction they go, or are you the point of contact for really anyone that wants to donate?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly work with folks that have the ability to give, have the capability to give more than about $25,000. However, that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to an individual who can only give 5,000 or even 1,000. I would say most people that are giving online are typically giving $1,000 and under. Um, but I've worked with plenty of folks that have given in that range or and higher. And again, if I'm able to talk to somebody, I mean, listen, $1,000 donation and $1 million donation, yes, there's a significant difference, obviously, in value, dollar value, but those two gifts are still making an impact. And it's my responsibility to show the $1,000 donor exactly how their $1,000 is making an impact, and the $1 million donor how their donation is making an impact. So to answer your question, though, I'll talk to anybody, and it's like anything else. It's based off my bandwidth. So if I'm working with an individual that can give $1 million, there's a chance I might be spending more time with that person versus the person that can only give $1,000.
Sure. Well,
but if I know there's an opportunity for that $1,000 donor to give even more, I'm gonna have to put the same amount of energy in it.
sure. What's interesting is your role is about acquiring value and giving value. And one of the things you said to me when we were talking shop before is people love stories, and that if you find a way to create that commonality by telling a story, by sharing a win, it becomes personal, it becomes authentic, and then the donor parts with their hard-earned money feeling as though they got the win. What's like a story where, like a win, where you told a donor something that really connected? Do you recall something that was really an authentic conversation like that?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it was probably one of the first pretty significant gifts. So I've been working at Nationwide Children's since 2014, and it was within my first year I was lucky enough to secure a pretty substantial seven-figure gift from a great family who I'm still pretty close with, and they made a gift towards our cancer program, and soon after that they made that gift. It was more on an education side of things for a specific researcher, and about 6 months after they made the gift, we had lunch. I had them, meet with me and the researcher, and the researcher was giving them an update. And he basically said to the family, these are two kids that basically, without your support, most likely wouldn't have made it through the year because they had a specific type of brain cancer. And his research was able to be, I would say, elevated because of their gift. And he was able to kind of bring these two kids into a trial, and now they're doing incredibly well. And he shared, a lot of their personal history, not breaking any type of HIPAA, but to really bring it down to a much more of a personal level for this family. And they were taken back. I mean, it was incredible. They were so moved by that experience, and they actually developed a really nice personal relationship with this researcher. So they kind of have that professional side, but then they developed a really nice personal relationship with he and his family, and they continue to talk and are friendly, and this family continues to be incredibly supportive of the hospital.
Yeah, that seems like such a win-win if the donor has the opportunity to see tangibly with their own eyes what their donation did. I got to imagine that's part of your job, is also kind of creating and sharing. You did that, you took this action, and this is the result. Do donors, is that pretty uncommon that donors have an opportunity to meet the patient that they impacted?
It depends. It depends on a lot of things. Usually, it depends on how the patient and patient family kind of feel about things. If they're, I would say most of the time, if they're incredibly grateful, they will allow their medical team and the hospital to they sign a bunch of waivers and everything, and basically say we're okay with you publicizing our story, even publicizing it maybe not to the mass public, but at least to the donor, whether it's a company or an individual or a family, whoever it be, and allowing them to kind of meet and have each understand the impact that they have had on each other's lives. Yeah, that certainly has happened. I'll say another story, or a little bit of an anecdote I would say, is that it's amazing. I've had a few situations where, again, lucky enough to work with a donor, and they've made a substantial gift to allow a certain area of the hospital to start a program, which means they're now also able to hire one or two or a couple employees. And I've thought a lot about this, that wow, like the chain reaction that just occurred over the last, let's say, 12 to 18 months of working with this donor, having them become involved with the hospital, and then them making a financial gift, and now that leads to this program starting, and it created jobs. I mean, it's amazing. Just that impact is incredible, because it's going to have a lasting impact on the kids that are part of the program, but it also has a lasting impact on the program director and the staff that were hired to be part of the program, and of course the donor that made it happen, and their legacy. It's amazing.
What's the most common area of the foundation, and what department? Is it cancer that a lot of people, that a majority of the volume of donations go towards?
Yeah, I would say it really does vary. I mean, we don't focus on any particular area. It's really, I mean, if a donor wants to give to the hospital and they have a particular area that they're interested in, we're going to work with them. I mean, we're not earmarking anything for any area, or primarily focusing on any area. I would say cancer, pediatric cancer and pediatric cancer research is an area that gets what I say a lot of love from the community. Increasingly, I would say over the last 2 years, I mentioned this before, our behavioral health program has gotten a lot of attention from the donor community, and we've received a lot of amazing support for that. And now we're looking at also, just general research. So the area of genomics and gene therapy, that's starting to get a lot more attention as well. And that the area of genomics and gene therapy and that research can encompass cancer research or behavioral health. So, that can be kind of all encompassing in a way. But I would say those two areas, cancer and behavioral health, are, I would say, more the popular areas. But again, we're not. We want to. It's really about the donor and what they're interested in. I think I mentioned this to you before offline, that when a donor says, "Listen, we love the hospital. We want to give $100,000. We don't care where it goes. You decide." I'm going to push back and say, "Listen, we appreciate that. We are incredibly grateful for your support and your gift and your kindness. With all due respect, I want to find an area that you're excited about, because this is your donation. This is your investment. If I decide, or if it just goes into our general pot, you're not going to continue to be excited about the hospital and what we're doing. So let's find an area that your donation can truly make an impact, and you can connect with the individuals, and whether it's on the patient side or the staff and research side, on how your gift is making an impact."
Sure. There's an emotion behind that donation, and that creates connection. and will very likely lead to future donations.
Right.
It's interesting. You were talking about genes and genealogy. I think the word you used. When my mom had cancer, a lot of research was being done about how do we detect cancer before it even becomes cancer. And something I had learned, which was really like a wake-up call, is that we all have mutations. We all have the possibility for cancer, and in some cases there is cancer already that just hasn't manifested because we don't have the mutation for it to become a problem. It's so prevalent. Everyone knows somebody that has cancer.
Right.
Yeah. Have you been personally impacted with any of your friends or family with cancer?
With cancer a little bit. I mean, my grandmother on my father's side, she unfortunately passed away from cancer. So yeah, that's I would say the most personal connection, and my grandfather as well on my mom's side.
Yeah.
So I'd say those are pretty personal. It's interesting. I've thought a lot about on the adult side of things. When just thinking about it from a philanthropic standpoint and kind of what I do. And when I tell people, I fundraise for Nationwide Children's, and their response is, "Oh, that must be incredibly easy because everybody wants to help sick kids." I don't say it's not easy. It's there's a lot of amazing organizations, and we're just looking at Columbus, Ohio, or Central Ohio. There's a mass amount of amazing organizations, and people have a great opportunity to choose how they spend their dollars in terms of philanthropy. And it's my job, and it does get hard to kind of put us to differentiate from the others. And when you're a large institution, whether it's us or Ohio Health or Ohio State or some of these larger institutions where you're seeing more buildings, typically people see more buildings and they'll think, they don't need my donation if I'm only giving $10,000 or $50,000. They got gobbles of money. They're building buildings and they're doing fine. Well, again, it's that's where I come in, and I can say, well, you might be right. We financially, Nationwide Children's, we're doing pretty well. However, for us to be a world-renowned institution on the pediatric side, whether it's research or on clinical, we need philanthropic support so we can continue to keep jumping up in the rankings. And this is exactly how your $10,000 can make an impact on this program that's focusing on asthma education in the schools or mental health. It's not as easy as you might think, but certainly we get a lot of amazing support from the community.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy at all. I know what it's like to ask for money. When I was in my 20s, a buddy of mine was having a bachelor party overseas. I was in my first job. My buddy was a banker making significantly more than me. It was uncomfortable to say, hey man, can you spot me X number of dollars and I will absolutely pay you back over the next couple of months. I mean, your ask is far more than $1,000. So I got to imagine that's not easy. One of the things I was thinking about, Ben, was giving can become kind of contagious. That there can be a culture around giving. And I was reading a book recently about how when you have a cause and you integrate that cause into your work life, it creates higher motivation, higher fulfillment, and it's a feedback loop. I'm just curious what exposure and kind of learnings you've had about the culture of giving.
Yeah, I think it certainly goes back to looking at your community. Growing up in the Jewish community here in Columbus, I was exposed to the various types of giving to various, at the time it was primarily Jewish organizations. And as I was, a younger adult, starting my career, I wasn't necessarily starting in the fundraising world, but I was getting my MBA in nonprofit management. I saw, I took a fundraising/development course, and I loved it because it was about relationships and about talking about giving and the culture of giving and why it's important. And certainly, learning, from a Jewish heritage standpoint, we learn very young the importance of tzedakah, the importance of giving, and giving to your community and giving to those that are less fortunate. And I think less fortunate is can mean a lot of different things. It's interesting how I feel like there's been a shift in lingo when people are talking about supporting organizations, whereas probably 20 or 30 years ago, it was giving to a charity, right? It's, so you don't hear that as much of, giving to a charity. You hear more, I'm supporting an organization. And that's because I think the culture of giving has changed. It's not just writing a check. And certainly that's the conversation I like to have as well with anyone that wants to support the hospital. It's, yes, I mean, we'd certainly want to talk about for financial support, and that's my primary objective. At the same time, let's talk about additional ways for you to be involved, whether it's sitting on, being a part of any of our auxiliary committees, or getting your kids involved from a volunteer standpoint, or donating items to our kiddos, or even now, during the COVID crisis, supporting our frontline staff, whatever it may be. And I think that's been the culture of giving, is people want to be even more involved and not just write a check and be done with it.
Yeah. I think one of the stories that people make up as adults as they get older is that I don't have enough money for my contribution to make a difference. And what's really easy to do is to lose the clarity that financially, a dollar helps. You have 100,000 or 1,000 people that have the thinking that a dollar helps. Now you have $1,000. So number one, the thought process behind making a contribution. There's no such thing as I don't have enough money. Anything helps. Number one.
Right.
The other thing is, I think that people, adults especially, myself included, is we think in terms of dollars and cents and forget that a contribution can be like, there's so many ways to be a contributor, a volunteer, you can be part of a public outreach. If you have a profession, you can leverage those skill sets by contributing to a committee or a department. So for those viewers who are watching this, join the culture of giving. It certainly is good for your health. It's good for the community. And if financially you feel like maybe that, for whatever reason, isn't the best fit for you, think of some other ways that you can give. Any parting words to folks that may be listening to this interview and kind of considering, they're on the fence about, nationwide, whether it's a fit for them to donate to?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I know we talked about this. This wasn't necessarily a plug for the hospital, although we talked a lot about it, so it's been great. And I will say, I love the fact that I didn't even think about this when we scheduled this last week, that we scheduled it on today, which is the day of giving. So those of you watching, first of all, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. If you're considering making a gift, make a gift today to any organization, and have it be to an organization that you are really passionate about. And don't be afraid to ask the question to the organization, how is my gift making an impact? You have a right to know that, and it's good for you to know that. It gets you even more involved and invested, to be honest, in that organization. In terms of the hospital, I would say if you are living in Central Ohio or even Ohio, and you're watching this, and you want to learn more about how, one of the largest pediatric hospitals in the country, how we're doing, whether it's in relation to COVID or not at all, feel free to reach out to me. I know, Mark has my info, and we're always more than happy to talk about what we're doing on the research side, on behavioral health side, on population health and community outreach. I mean, it's an amazing organization, and we're just getting bigger and making more of an impact. And what's amazing also is that we are working so the work and collaboration and partnerships that we have with all the other children's hospitals in the country is incredible. I tell people that if we're competing, it's really more on marketing and fundraising, and that's it. And that's not really the stuff that truly matters. It's really the research and the impact that we have on the kids that we're taking care of. And so we want to make sure that every kid in the country has an opportunity to get amazing healthcare, whether it's in Columbus, Ohio, or anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah. One other thing I forgot to talk to you about, which I was really interested to explore with you, was these micro loan companies. I participate in a company that it's called Kiva. Are you familiar with kiva.org?
I've heard of them a little bit. Yeah. I'm not super familiar, but yeah.
So this is also another way of giving. It's kind of a different model in that you get the money back, but business owners around the world need money for upstarts, and many of the business owners are from different countries, those particularly in war-stricken areas. So I choose to give to a lot of Middle Eastern countries that have been really, really badly hurt by war. Someone wants to open a vegetable stand. Someone is trying to sell electronics. It's an interesting model for giving that your dollar still is helping people and you happen to get it back. And what's really cool is the more I've been giving to Kiva, the more I'm looking forward to giving more.
Yeah.
Giving is a renewing behavior. It renews itself as you give more.
Right.
The message there, it can also translate to really anything. It can translate to giving in a relationship with a spouse, to a child, to a colleague. I would probably say that we often try to keep that special mojo to ourselves,
right,
as a protection mechanism. And that if there's any message I would like to share to our viewers and other people is that open yourself up to the possibility of giving. Ultimately, you get it back in the end. You really do.
100%. And it's great for those of you that have young children like you and I have, Mark, to kind of show that and show them the impact of doing the right thing, being a good person, being a member of the community and society. And again, it doesn't just have to be by from a financial standpoint. There's so many different ways that families can do that. And so I encourage everyone to, at the very least, tonight at the dinner table, because I know we're all home, have that conversation with your family and the importance of giving, because today's the right day to do it.
Awesome. Ben, you're the best, man. I'm so glad to connect with you.
Thank you.
For a moment while I stop the broadcast and you and I can just chat for a moment. All right?
No problem. Thank you, Mark.